The word community has become such a buzzword over the last couple years, and it's something that I am so incredibly passionate about. So I decided I want to make a whole video about why the word community has become popular, how that connects to the environmental sustainability movement, and how that's impacted my life, and how we can get beyond the performative nature of like using the word community online. If you haven't grasped just how passionate I am about this topic, then you might be new here and you might want to hit that subscribe button, because we talk all things being better to the planet, consuming less in the name of being better to the planet essentially, and trading consumerism for creating and community. That is my ultimate goal with this platform, and if that sounds like something you would like, I would love to have you stick around. I say that because I am an environmentalist first. I have been every type of environmentalist. That's usually what I like to say. I have been the preachy environmentalist in my late teens, early 20s, and the way I feel public discourse has shifted from the early 2010s, when I feel like to be an environmentalist was to be preachy about what you think you should, or other people should, or the government should be doing. And then I saw a shift in the late 2010s where being an environmentalist was to project what it looks like to be an environmentalist. It was more about your personal actions and what you were buying. Essentially, were you shopping in bulk? The zero waste movement, all of its problematic things. Were you buying natural materials in your clothes? Like, what did you physically look like? It was now a physical projection of what being an environmentalist was not just talking about what you think should be happening, but it was doing and looking like what you think the sustainable utopia of the future looks like, where you are a perfect consumer. I think it commoditized what being an environmentalist looked like. And then we enter 2016, and the public consciousness of environmental action, of climate action, really, I feel, took off in the face of the 2016 election, and in the face of realizing how many things Trump would roll back during his term in terms of environmental regulations, protections, actions, programs, etc., etc. All of that was ramping up in the face of 2020, where public consciousness shifted in a way that cannot be overstated. 2016, where there's all this awareness, and 2020, where there's all this action. And by the time we get to the next election cycle, I think all of that awareness and all of this caring and all of this public outcry, we realized the government wasn't going to do what we needed them to do. I think environmentalists were trying all these different things to enact the change we wanted to see. And I think leading up to the most recent election, we realized that change is not happening on the scale that we need to see it happening to have a sustainable future. I really think that's when consciousness shifted from individual action, doing the best you can as an environmentalist, and hoping that the government is doing the same, is doing their part alongside you. I think that's when we realized the government isn't gonna do that. We have to come together as a community in order to enact any change, not only at a governmental level, but at a grassroots level in our neighborhoods, in our cities. We have to focus on more local action, because at the top, they're just not moving as fast as we need to. And unless we come together as a collective to make them, they simply will not do it. In short, community became a rallying cry for people disillusioned by top-down solutions and seeking empowerment through local and collective action. And this connects to broader societal shifts like increasing distrust in institutions and the desire to reclaim our own agency, to feel like the things that we care about are being heard and that things are being done about them. That's a quick and dirty way that I think the word community became into public consciousness, but that doesn't necessarily explain when it became performative or why it matters. So when I say the word community, what does that even mean, and why does it matter? Community can mean so many different things to different people, and there are different ways to use the term, because there are your friends, there's your family, there's people you've met through groups or hobbies or your neighbors. But for me, community is the people that you can rely on when shit goes down. It's hyper local, it's dependability, it's resilience, it's reciprocity. And it matters because that's our backup system, and that is the way that humans were meant to operate. For me, the first time it really hit me was in the freeze of 2021 here in Texas, where we went almost 5 whole days without power unexpectedly. We didn't see it coming at all. We weren't prepared in any way, shape, or form. Not only did we not have power, but we didn't have any way to keep ourselves warm. A lot of people didn't even have ways to cook because we didn't have electricity with electric stoves. We didn't have stocked pantries. We didn't have flashlights charged. And for me, the scariest part is that we didn't even have like cell service because the cell towers were also not being powered. And it was the first time it really hit me how serious it is to know your neighbors, to have relationships, because when the grid fails, in other words, when the public infrastructure or our representatives fail us, the people right next to us are the people we have to rely on and that are relying on us. During that time, we learned what different people had different things. I gave cans of stuff that my neighbors needed to make food, and some people had bigger cars than I did, so they were the ones who would make runs to the grocery stores. Some people needed like a special key to turn on their fireplace. Some people needed these water keys because their pipes were frozen and we needed to turn them off, and some people had that. The importance of this is obviously having a resilient network of support, not for selfish reasons, but because that is how we survive. It's not just connection for the sake of someone helping you when you need help. It's connection for the sake of understanding other people's struggles and standing up for them. It's connection for the sake of building better systems at a local level. It's having a network to go to when you need to fight something that is impacting your community. And this way we become less dependent on broken supply chains, on broken systems. You have someone to call before things become an emergency, and you don't feel like you're in this alone. And from someone who has been doing this for the last several years, I can say that it keeps hope alive, that we will have a future that is livable for us and future generations, because I can see the change happening in real time. I think I can look back and see pretty clearly how I had realizations as time went on that this is what actually matters. And that's why I'm so passionate about the word community, because I care so much about helping this planet and helping the people of this planet. And my methods of doing that over time have changed, only with more and more realizations of how change actually happens. I also want to give you something that you could do to get involved right now, because there are wild things happening in the United States right now, such as the Trump administration rolling back 30 different environmental protections, many of which were put in place to protect our communities. From the air we breathe to the water we drink, the most essential things in life. We're talking about policies that once protected our water from oil drilling waste and required fossil fuel companies to disclose how much they're polluting, and help limit air pollution, which causes over 8 million premature deaths globally every year. And it's not hypothetical, it's impacting communities, especially the most vulnerable right now. So here's something small and tangible you can do to push back today. If you text Shelby to 43464, you can call your representative and demand that they reinstate critical environmental protections. It's quick, direct, and one step closer to turning performative solidarity into action. I'll leave a link with more information at the top of the description, but I think that it's good that while we are talking about the performative discourse of community and also the ways that people are and are not engaging and how it feels so like out there, like kind of a big idea, that there are things we can do right now to help protect our communities. And it's not just one thing. That's why I have this saying, do your best and advocate for the rest, because it's not just meet your neighbors, be there for them, build resilient networks. It's also advocate for all of the things that you can't control. And if you text Shelby to 43464, it can help by calling your representatives and tell them you don't want to see those protections rolled back because you care about your community. Now the meat and potatoes of this, what I really want to talk about, is the performative discourse of community online. It has become such a buzzword everywhere. But the biggest frustration I have about this is the way that using this word for all these different purposes really dilutes the meaning of what community is. Because when everyone is part of a community, in theory, if your skincare brand is a community and your neighbors are also your community, and what's the importance of it at the end of the day if me engaging with this skincare brand online is a community versus building resilient networks? Do you see how those two things are so different, and conflating the two is awful? And once you see it, you can't unsee it. People talking about community as people and numbers online, like people who talk about their community being followers of a skincare brand on Instagram, it makes me cringe a little. Using that word in this way has really watered down the meaning of it. And so with the rise in popularity of activists and people who care about this planet talking about the need to build community, and then they see this brand on TikTok or on Instagram talking about their community and never explaining what it means or how to build it, it's so confusing for a lot of people who are not already really versed in what it means to be in community or be an activist. It also creates this false sense of belonging, because just following an account online doesn't make you a part of a community. A community has reciprocity. This is a big word I think that like we need to attach to communities so that people understand what it is, because reciprocity, being reciprocal to one another, when someone needs something and when someone takes something, that reciprocity is what creates community. You liking a brand's Instagram photo, there's no reciprocity. There's no reciprocity happening there. When you see people say, build community so that we can, create movements and have a future, they're not talking about go make friends on Discord. And I feel the term has been thrown around so much since its rise in popularity that people don't know what people mean by it when they say build community, because it's been used for things like Discord or skincare pages on Instagram. And it rewards branding over action, okay? You can be a part of a community by buying something, which is my biggest pet peeve, the way that we now identify who we are and what communities we're a part of by buying things. And it values what you look like and what you're buying and how you brand yourself over the things you're doing. It's the way you get yourself into a community is all of the aesthetic stuff and not the action part. And because social media is such a big part of this, the performance of caring about community, the talking about it, the encouraging other people to do it is how you get the clicks, the likes, the shares, the comments online, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're actually making a difference in general, and definitely not in person to people's real lives. And I think just throwing around this word community online without explaining what that means or how to do it will definitely set people up for disappointment and looking for it in all the wrong places and spending their time and energy in places that don't protect the things that we are supposed to be working to protect with this discourse of the word community. I want to talk about the barriers so that people are at least aware of them and we can help break them down and explain why it's become so performative to say community rather than to actually do the community work. And one of the first barriers you have to acknowledge is the infrastructure. Communities lack so much in the things that used to be the foundation of building strong communities and action networks, community groups, etc., etc. We don't have third spaces. Specifically in my neighborhood, I'll just speak from my experience, we have not one single third space in my actual neighborhood. And if you don't know what a third space is something that's not your work and not your home. It's somewhere you go outside of that to be connected to your literal community. It's been one of the biggest challenges of being the president of my neighborhood because we don't have anywhere to host meetings in person in our own neighborhood. So lack of third spaces is a huge issue. Lack of leadership, because we have lost a lot of that storytelling and information. We move so far into consumerism being the reason that you are a part of a community that we've lost the knowledge of how to lead a community, of what it means to build one. I talked about this a lot in another video where I talked about how we basically gave up community for consumerism. And so through the generations of our elders, knowing what it means to be in community and how to build that and the leadership it takes to do it, but those skills didn't really translate through our parents' generation. And so we're over here without the people who have helped us understand what that even means and how to do it, because through this timeline, in my personal opinion and assessment of culture, we've traded the community that a lot of our older generations had, and many marginalized groups as well. We traded it for consumerism. The way we identify what groups we're a part of, the way we are in community now is a lot tied to what we're buying, and we've lost the leadership within communities, and we've also lost a lot of the funding. And I don't just mean within the last few months that we've lost the funding. Over the last several years, a lot of funding to neighborhoods in general, to third spaces in general, to parks, to libraries, community centers, etc., etc., etc. I could go on for so long about funding that has been lost to create community. The opportunities are so few and far between compared to the way that we used to function. Also, it's our dependence on tech and social media that connection and entertainment is all on this little phone now, and we don't have to go outside and talk to anyone to get it. Whereas like for most of human history, that is not how it's worked. So that's a big barrier, just getting people to put this down and go outside. And one of the biggest barriers, I think, is instant gratification. I'll just speak from my experience. Instant gratification has become so prevalent. We want our actions to show us results tomorrow, today, right as we're doing them, right? I think that's why when we think about ways to be a part of a community or to give back in an environmental sense, the answer is trash cleanup, because it goes from litter to not being litter, and that's so instant. But building community is not like that. Not at all. It takes a long time, and it's a conversation here and a conversation there, and a give your neighbor something here and a can I borrow that there, and it's small bits of little things that happen over years to build true resilient networks and communities. And a lot of our brains are just not wired for that anymore, because we are so used to desiring instant showing of our efforts. Something I'm currently fighting against in my own journey to being an environmentalist, specifically a community focused one. 1 in 4 Americans do not even know their neighbors. Not like they're not friends with them, not like they're in community, like they don't even know their names. And I've had several communications with people as I've been working on building community in my neighborhood who say the same thing. Oh, I don't even know my neighbors. Or people who I tell the work that I'm doing in my neighborhood to right now, like, oh my God, that's so cool. I'm so glad you're doing that. I wish I could do that. And like, the answer is you can. It's not like this has been easy for me. It's not like this has been obvious. It's not like anyone has shown me what to do. I just did it little by little, slow, gradual changes over time. And I'm not anywhere near where I want to be, okay? With community in this neighborhood, I have years to go. I have a 10-year plan, okay? But I think the fact that people don't even know their neighbors, and the fact that people think it's really cool that I am getting to know almost everyone in my neighborhood, people want that. They just don't really know how to get there, which is a barrier in and of itself. And I think in line with all of that, it's the awareness and the talking about it. You can almost get instant gratification just by talking about the fact that it matters on social media. If I post a TikTok saying a lot of this, I will get so much admiration and feedback and love, like, yes, that's a good thing, but it's like, what about doing it? It's moving that awareness into action. So how do we bridge the gap? How do we actually do this? Well, that's a whole separate conversation. I wanted this conversation to be about the discourse of community, why we're getting so caught up in the conversation instead of the action. So I'm actually gonna do a whole nother video, probably a live stream actually, on things that I have physically done to help build community in my neighborhood. And something I really want you to keep in mind as you take in all of this information is the 3.5% rule. When 3.5% of the population engages, studies show that they most likely will have real social or governmental change. This is a study from Harvard. You don't need everyone to rise up. You just need a small active group. The study analyzed hundreds of uprisings between 1900 and 2006, and movements like the Civil Rights Movement, the People Power Movement in the Philippines, and the fall of East Germany all succeeded with mass but peaceful mobilization. And in every case where at least 3.5% of the population participated in sustained resistance, the movement was successful. And it's proof that top-down action can be influenced by small, sustained groups of people. And it's proof that we don't need the majority, we just need momentum. And it does take work, but it actually works. When people come together in a local, organized, consistent way, change is not only possible, it is probable. And there are many hurdles, as I discussed, to get to this point. It's getting past the mistrust. It's getting past, for me, my insecurities and my introvertedness and all of the scary things that come along with it, the fear of rejection, etc., etc. If you can get past the need for instant gratification and slowly build resilient networks one by one, I genuinely think it is our only chance of having a sustainable future, no matter what it is that you care about on this planet, if it's people, if it's the environment, if it's a specific cause in your neighborhood, in your city, in the country. The only way we are going to move the needle in a way that is actually going to make a difference is if we are connected and we get outside of our individualistic bubbles to make a change. So I think that explains pretty clearly how I went from being a preachy environmentalist to a community activist, and I plan on making another video with very tangible ways you too can do this sort of thing where you live in your neighborhood and your apartment complex. A lot more very literal ways I've been doing that, so stay tuned for that. But until then, make sure you send this video to your neighbor so you know that they know why you care about the same things and why actually being connected is literally fighting against all of the things that we don't want to see in our society. And that is exactly why I always say, do your best and advocate for the rest.